Good evening. Welcome on the State of Business on our television. My name is Kavishka Pereira. Let's take a look at today's headlines first. President instructs governors to intervene in freeing the lands of North and Eastern provinces. Sri Lankan government allows private sector to maintain bonded warehouse for imported goods clearance. News in detail. President Maithripala Sirisena instructed the relevant authorities to intervene in the program to release lands in the northern and eastern provinces to its original owners, which were acquired by security forces during the conflict. President Sirisena made this statement while addressing a meeting which was held to review the progress of the procedures of the provincial councils in 2018. Governors, chief ministers and secretaries of provinces and other officials were present at this event. Monetary issues and the progress of physical assets, vacancies to be filled and other issues were also discussed during the meeting. President instructed the chief ministers of all provinces to provide their fullest support for those programs conducted towards eradicating poverty in rural regions. Speaking further, President Sirisena stated that everyone should contribute towards accomplishing objectives of the Grama Shakti People's Movement, which is a prominent project to eradicate poverty. Moreover, issues faced by those in the plantation sector were also discussed during the meeting. The government has decided to grant permission to the private sector to operate warehouse facilities for the clearance of goods imported from less than a container or LCL cargo imported to Sri Lanka. The new regulations, which will be effective from the 1st of October, allow not only the clearance of imported goods and export activities, but also the re-export through the bonded warehouse. License from the Department of Customs can be obtained under the approval of the Minister of Finance in order to establish this warehouse at a reasonable distance easily accessed from the international port and airport. An annual license fee of 500,000 rupees will be charged. Meanwhile, permission has been granted to run bonded warehouses for large-scale pharmaceuticals, dairy and the capital goods imported for the investment of garbage management as per the 2018 budget. Tax relief has too been granted for these capital goods. Stay tuned for more news after this short commercial break. Welcome back. The second annual Asia Security Financial Sector Investment Forum was held in Colombo today. The forum is one of the most prominent events in Asia Security's unique series of investor forums, which seeks to inform and educate the capital market, corporate investor community and high net worth investors on investment opportunities in Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, delivering the keynote address, the Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Dr. Indrajith Kumaraswamy, stated that at present the government and the central bank has the confidence to meet Sri Lanka's external debt obligations.
We got $1 billion in this year, just last week from the China Development Bank on very favorable terms. That was part of this year's borrowing requirement. Scaled to 500 million under the Active Liability Management Act. We are exploring Samurai and Panda bonds, Sukuk bonds. We are in the midst of talks with the Central Bank of Oman and the Central Bank of Qatar for swap arrangements. We will go into the market for an ISB relatively quickly as well. So all this is lined up. So there is $2-3 billion worth of resource mobilization that the government and the central bank are planning to raise. And we are confident with that we have the firepower to meet our external debt obligations. Sri Lanka has never missed a single payment, and that is not something we want to allow to change. And also to have some money in the turbulence EM space as far as exchanges rate is concerned, to have some money to prevent a disorderly adjustment.
Speaking further, Kumaraswamy also made the following remarks.
There's also been an allegation when I come to the banking sector, I'll develop this more, but there's been an allegation that mismanagement has put the banking sector at risk, and that during the global financial crisis, things were managed extremely well and the banking sector was not affected. I'm not sure how much management was necessary because Sri Lankan banks were not exposed to the banks that collapsed or had serious difficulties in 2008. So one didn't have to do very much to protect the financial system if we don't have exposure to those financial institutions which had difficulty. And it's also difficult to argue that there was no problems in the financial system. The biggest headache, I see the direct non-bank financial supervision sitting directly in front of. The biggest nightmares I've had in the 2 years and 3 months I've been in office have not been in relation to the bond issuances, which they were pretty nightmarish, but not the worst, not the misuse of the superannuation fund of the working people of this country, which is the EPF, but the problems in the non-bank financial institution sector. The sector as a whole is okay, but there was a legacy of 6 insolvent companies that has been passed down to me, and nothing has been done about them, and it's a major, major problem. And it was due to, we live in a very politicized society, and it was due to regulatory forbearance related to the politicization of our society, and that politics had seeped into the central bank. So you can't say that the financial sector was managed extremely well, because this is the biggest problem. This is the thing that gives me the biggest nightmares as to how we're going to handle this. We will handle it. We've got a game plan, and we are quietly working our way through it. Mr. Ranavira and his team have done a tremendous amount of work, but it is a big challenge. So nobody can say that the financial system was managed extremely well and that we had no problems in previous years.
Meanwhile, speaking at the event, the State Minister of National Policies and Economic Affairs, Dr. Harsha De Silva, made the following remarks with regard to the Colombo International Financial Centre.
Where do we stand? And to set up an IFC, do we have all these positives? Look at ease of doing business, we're not so great. Looking at the taxes, paying taxes, we rank pretty low. Legal system, of course, is getting better, but still there's a lot of room to improve. Labor market, we have quite a bit of rigidity in the markets. Capital markets, Sri Lanka's market cap as a percentage of GDP is perhaps the lowest. Transaction costs are high. Foreign direct investments, not a great story. These are the reality. This is what we have to take into consideration and then try to figure out how we're going to create something new to break this and to change, to move away from all of this. So that is, for me, it's kind of like a policy lab, that if we create a different and a more conducive, efficient system in the new reclamation, we can then use that, what's working, to the rest of the country. So if you look at the positives, infrastructure, we have done relatively well. The quality indicators, we are much, we're far ahead of some other regional countries. International trade agreements, even though some people have been critical, we are continuing to go ahead with trade agreements, and that gives us that advantage. And quality of life, of course, is, like I said, is far better. The building blocks of CIFC, multi-service special economic zone combined with an international financial center to generate high levels of FDI. So that's really the plan. It is a multi-service special economic zone. Think about it not just as 2 buildings, that is the CIFC, but innovation and entrepreneurial hub. A talent can be liberated.
Let's take a short break. Stay tuned for stock updates after this. Welcome back. The trading at the Colombo Stock Exchange ended on a positive note today. The All-Share Price Index gained 4.52 points to close at 5,770.52, and the S&P/SL 20 gained 11.56 points to close at 2,932.23. The turnover was 200.9 million rupees and 8.9 million shares were traded. Next up is Forex rates. That's all the news we have for today. Join us tomorrow at the same time for more of the very latest. Thank you and good night.